in critical race theory for urban high school students of color. Currently, she is pursuing a second bachelor's degree in Islamic studies through Al-Azhar University. Maryam has memorized the Quran and is a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo. She travels to work with different communities on topics related to spiritual connection, social issue, and women's studies. She lectures with Hikmah Institute and writes for virtualmos.com and anjoma.com. Now introducing Maryam Amir.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Assalamu alaikum. When I was first coming to make a particular dua, I started by asking Allah with all my heart. Oh Allah, give me this. And I would beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and I would cry. But in that process, as I was making that dua, in my heart, the whole time I was thinking, Allah's not going to answer me. Why would Allah answer this dua when He knows how badly I want it? Why would He give this to me when He knows how much I want it? He's going to give me the opposite of what I'm asking for. Have any of you thought that when you've made dua? It took me some time to process that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, I am as my servant thinks I am. So when I'm making dua, I'm like, oh Allah, answer my dua. And in my heart, I'm thinking about Him in this stingy, in this way that He wants to come out and get me. I'm thinking about Him like that. So why would He answer all of that pain and effort? And in my heart, the whole time I'm thinking He's never going to respond to me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ وَدَعُونِي أَسْتَجِبَ لَكُمْ. Make dua to me, I will respond to you. He tells us that. He doesn't say, I will respond the opposite. He says, I will respond to you. Now sometimes, when we make dua, the opposite does happen. And we wonder, why are we being tested in this way? Sometimes something happens and we think, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mad at me? Am I cursed? And it's hard for our hearts to remember who Allah is. And it takes time for us to shift the perspective that we have and the way that we look at what's happening in our lives to focus on the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His wisdom and the things that happen in our lives. Softening our hearts in hardship is difficult at times because sometimes we might feel resentful. Other times we feel like there's no one who will understand about Allah, and so we come back to Him even closer. Today, inshallah, we're going to talk about 3 points and how we can establish this connection with Him in a way that will help our hearts feel alive, and in a way that will help us feel Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love for us, even when we're going through some of the most difficult things in our lives. When we're reciting Quran today, we already had a Quran session earlier, and I described the fiqh differences of opinion on women reciting. I'm planning to recite today because when you recite the Quran, it is totally different from just making a statement. That's very important for my personal iman. And I think it's very important for our iman collectively as an ummah to reconnect with the Quran. If you have a fiqh question about this, feel free to talk to me afterwards, inshallah. We went into a discussion about it in the earlier session. But let's look at the 3 points. The first one is, when we're looking at the hereafter, when we're looking at death, having hope. When you hear about death, when you think about the reality of the fact that we're all going to pass away, it's terrifying. It's very scary. But when you look at it in a way where when you're alive, you're hoping to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so you're working towards that. That perspective is the difference between having hope in meeting Him and making decisions that doesn't reflect that hope. I'm going to give you 3 beautiful stories of people who inshallah hope to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first one is of a child. And my mom, when she was in middle school, her sister had a friend who was her friend had a sister who was in elementary school, and she had cancer. And she was passing away. And she was on her deathbed in the hospital, and she's surrounded by her family, her parents. And she says to them, Mom and Dad, who are these people who've come into the room? She saw a man and a woman. And she said, there's such a beautiful man and such a beautiful woman in my room. Do you see them? And they didn't see them. And she said, they brought me the most beautiful white dress I've ever seen. Do you see the beautiful white dress that they're holding? And her parents couldn't see that at all. And she's talking about these beautiful people and this beautiful white dress, and then she passes away. I cannot imagine the pain of losing a child. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of the parents who've lost their children and make it easy on them, and to bless those children with the highest paradise. I can only imagine the comfort that those parents may have felt when they heard her saying this statement. Because when we're looking at this, what are you thinking? Are you thinking angels? Are you thinking the comfort that comes with maybe, inshallah, the shroud for her soul? Just this white, beautiful garment? When I was in Egypt, there was a sister I met in the masjid. I had gone to ask a sheikh if he could teach myself and a group of us. And the sheikh said that he was too busy and he couldn't teach us. And I was pretty disappointed because I specifically wanted to study from him. And the sister saw me in the masjid and she asked me what I had asked. And then she said, SubhanAllah, you came to this masjid seeking this, and I am starting a tafsir class. And here are all of the books of tafsir that I have that you can borrow. And she told me that her name was Asma Saqr. And then when the Egyptian Revolution happened, her husband was hurt, and she went to the hospital with him. And from the floor, she was on I think the 4th floor of the hospital, a sniper shot her in the back. And she passed away. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on her and raise her ranks and accept her as a martyr. She's in the hospital with her back facing the window. But when I saw a picture of her when she was shrouded in the garments, which honestly shouldn't have been shared on social media, but I will say that what I saw from her picture was literally the biggest smile on her face. She literally looked like she was smiling, like a huge smile on her face. And I saw that and I thought, this was somebody who lived this moment. She lived for this moment. She knew where she wanted to be, and her life reflected that hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's a friend of mine who was very close to her grandfather. Her grandfather was very kind, very generous, always giving, always smiling, so loving to everybody, no matter what. And subhanAllah, after he passed away, may Allah have mercy on him, she had a dream that she was in a house and these 2 doors opened. And all of a sudden she told me she can't even describe what she saw. Just gardens. It just the most beautiful sight she's ever seen. And when she saw this beautiful sight, she said she saw her grandfather. And he's telling her, come, join me. And she's thinking in the dream, well, if I join him, does that mean that I will have to die? Does it mean I'll have to leave everything? And she said that she heard suddenly these voices in the dream that sounded like something she can never describe. She thinks it might have been like the sound of angels in her dream. And she said the second she heard that, she wanted to leave everything behind. That was enough. That in and of itself was enough for her to want to just enter those doors. And then she tried to enter in the dream, and then there was a voice that called out and said, it's not your time yet. But we hear of these people, and we see these examples of people who really have lived and who've passed away. They come in dreams. We see like moments of them. And when you hear stories like that of real people, do you feel like kind of like a chill goes through your body? You got goosebumps? Your heart feels a little bit stronger? These are small examples that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us to make it hopeful for us. That you might know someone you love who's no longer here with us. You might know someone who's passed away. But we pray that inshallah they will be of the people that we meet inshallah in paradise. When you are looking to soften your heart in the middle of something difficult, think about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about the angels. الذين يحملون العرش ومن حوله يسبحون بحمد ربهم ويستغفرون للذين آمنوا ربنا وسعت كل شيء رحمة وعلما فاغفر للذين تابوا واتبعوا سبيلك وقهم عذاب الجحيم. These are angels who Allah ordered to be holding the arsh of Allah. And you know what they do? Constantly. This verb in Arabic means it happens constantly. Constantly asking Allah to forgive the believers. You constantly asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive the believers. Sa'id ibn Jubair said that if just one angel asked for forgiveness for all of the believers, it would be enough for all of the believers to be forgiven. This entire group of angels, on a regular basis, different ones, are constantly praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you to be forgiven. So much so, as one scholar said, that when you're asleep, the angels are asking for Allah's forgiveness for you. And this verse doesn't say the believers who've never made mistakes, or the believers who don't sin. It's you, the believers who are struggling and who are trying and who are made fun of because of their religion and who are struggling to be Muslim. You. If one of them made dua for you to be forgiven, all of the Muslims would be forgiven, Sa'id ibn Jubair says. So what about an entire group? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders angels. They don't act unless Allah orders it. So your merciful Lord has ordered for angels to constantly be asking for your forgiveness even when we forget to ask for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. That's how merciful He is. And when we're looking to soften our heart, here's one activity to do. When you open the Quran, every single day, make it a point to open the Quran. It doesn't have to be for half an hour. It can be, which would be amazing. But it can just be a specific amount you choose. One verse, one page, in a language you understand, so that you understand the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make it simple, something you're going to do every single day. Make that decision for your life. And when you go to a verse that talks about paradise, I'd like you to do this. Please do me a favor and close your eyes. Think about the person who is the most beloved to you. Maybe this person is a grandfather or a parent who has passed away. Maybe this person is a friend. Maybe this person is here right now and you can't imagine living your life without them. And all of a sudden you're in paradise and you look around and you see that there are rivers and you see that there are palaces and you see that there are flowers and you're blown away. And you're just standing there and all of a sudden someone comes from behind you and they put their hands on your eyes. And you're feeling their hands like, who is this? And then you turn around and you see the person that you've missed for so long. You see that person that you couldn't live your life without. The person who means the most to you. When you're reading the verses of paradise, think of that person in that moment. What is it like when you're suddenly there and you see the person you love more than anyone else? And inshallah, you'll be with them forever. What is it like on the other side when you read verses of hell? And how terrifying that sounds. God forbid, may Allah protect us from being of those people and everyone that we love. How does that affect you emotionally? So that we're not just reading the verses and we're skimming through them, but you're choosing every single day to shift your perspective in the way that you look at Allah, that you choose to understand His words in the way that it implements into your life. That's the first piece, the way, the perspective that we have about the hereafter. And particularly, finally on this point, think about the way that you wish your end would be. Inshallah, may Allah bless everybody in this room to live over 100, with lots of health and strength and energy, and with all of our loved ones, and never have any losses and lots of ease in life. Ameen. Now that happens, inshallah. How would you like to pass? Think about the way that you would like your end to be, and ask Allah every single day for that ending. One sister that I know of, her family told a story of her constantly praying to die in Medina. And they didn't live in Medina. They didn't live in Saudi Arabia. But they went for Umrah, and she passed away in Medina. And she had made that dua constantly through her life. So choose how you want to live your life so that it's reflected in your end, inshallah. And in that moment, remember all of those times that you did that you've given up something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it's worth it for that time. So having purpose in the way that we live, and thinking about the hereafter in that perspective. The second point is gratitude. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives and gives and gives, and there's so many examples, small examples of this. There is a sister who wrote a book, her name is Fajr Literary. She wrote a beautiful book that gives examples of like these amazing moments. And one of them is that she had been in touch with a sister who she'd lost touch with. And when she was in touch with this person, she had gotten medicine for a family that was sick. And this particular sister was the only one who had that medicine. So she lost touch for a number of years, and this sister refound her. And they reconnected, and that sister who had given the medicine asked about that family. And hey, do they need more medication? And my friend Farhia, may Allah bless her, Sheikha Farhia, she was like, I haven't talked to them in a while. Like she couldn't even remember what she was talking about. And then a week later, that same family contacted her and asked frantically because their father was in a coma. And they asked her, can you please ask that friend for that same medication? Because they couldn't get that medication. And think about this, she hasn't been in touch with this person for years. Had they contacted her a week past, she wouldn't have been able to reach this person. She had no idea how to contact her. But Allah willed for this person to contact my friend in this moment so that he could protect and bless and ease a family that needed it a week later. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's going to happen when we don't. And He gives us these gifts, this hiba. Hiba is a gift. It's a gift that you get out of nowhere. You didn't even work for it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you with it. He's so loving that He gives us these gifts. There was a blind woman who was 92 years old. She lost her husband of 70 years. And she was taken to a nursing home. And they're showing her around the room, and they're telling her, this is where we have the couch, this is where we have the bed. She's like, I love it, I already love it. And they're like, we haven't even brought you to feel the arrangement of the room yet. And she said, I chose to love it before I even got into the room. Because it's all about the mindset that you have. And when you have an attitude of gratitude, it changes the way that blessings are in your life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that when you are grateful, He will increase you. And increase means in so many different things. Because what I need is different from what you need. And what you need is different from what you need. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that. And when you're grateful for what you have, He gives and increases and increases. And subhanAllah, can I tell you something that just is so merciful from Him? The Prophet ﷺ told us about parents who go to paradise and their children are not there. And then they're like, where are our kids? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His mercy, He brings their kids into paradise for them. Because they can't imagine what paradise is like without their children. And then the Prophet ﷺ recited the ayat, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّبَعَتْهُمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ بِإِيمَانٍ أَلْحَقْنَا بِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ. It should have been ذُرِّيَّتُهُمْ in the beginning. I made a mistake. And the end is ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ. وَمَا أَلَتْنَاهُمْ مِنْ عَمَلِهِمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ كُلُّ امْرِئٍ بِمَا كَسَبَ رَهِينٌ. Those who believe and their children who follow them in Iman, I can't translate this exactly, but the point is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings them together in paradise, and it doesn't take away from their deeds. So, Sa'id ibn Jubair, he talks about a man who goes into paradise, and he's like, my Lord, where is my dad? Where is my grandpa? Where is my wife? Where is my son? Where is my daughter? Where are my kids? This is not the order that it goes in. He's like, where's my family? And then it's told to him, well, they didn't work as hard as you did, so your deeds are not that same level. And then, subhanAllah, he says, I worked for myself and for them. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings them into paradise. And these are little children, and these are adult children. This is, you can look in Qurtubi, in Al-Tabari, in Baghawi, in Tafsir al-Kabir, Imam al-Razi. There are so many narrations like this, about these verses, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Imam al-Razi says, this person in Jannah is enjoying something about Jannah, and then suddenly they remember, my family isn't here, my kids aren't here. And so because of that sadness that person feels, Allah doesn't want them to feel sad, and so because of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings their family to them. This is kids for their parents, parents for their kids. How merciful is Allah? We don't deserve that. He does it out of love for you so that in paradise you won't feel sad. Anyone who's a parent, you can't imagine living without your kids. Anyone who's a kid who loves their parents, you can't imagine living without your parents, or your spouse, or your loved ones. How merciful is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with that. So when you look at gratitude, how do you inculcate that in your life so that you have this look of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that's one of hope and one of love and one of gratitude one of fear, of course, because we're afraid of displacing him. And so we don't want to do the wrong thing because we want his pleasure, but at the same time we know he's so merciful. So when we make a mistake, he forgives us. How do you inculcate that? 2 things. Number 1, sit once a week for just 3 minutes. Set a timer on your phone once a week and say Alhamdulillah. And think about what you're thanking Allah for in every single time you say Alhamdulillah. Help that seep into your heart. The other day, I almost got in a major accident. Alhamdulillah, I'm very blessed with 2 young children. And I couldn't let samahullah, God forbid. Like, I literally felt like there were angels protecting our car. Because it could have been so close. And the last second, Allah protected us from hitting them. Like his lutf upon us, like, Alhamdulillah. So, psychologists talk about if you spend every single day, at the end of the day, just writing down 3 particular things to be grateful for, it changes the way that your brain neurons are formed. It's an attitude of gratitude. It's a lifestyle. And Allah tells us when we have that attitude and that lifestyle, He increases us in it. Secondly, when we recognize all that Allah has given us, we also realize how undeserving we are, how many shortcomings we have. So we sit and we say, Alhamdulillah, and then we say, Astaghfirullah. And we ask Allah for forgiveness. And in every single one of those, we think of something wrong that we've done. And we engage our entire hearts and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us. And the Prophet ﷺ told us that the one who's constantly making istighfar, he will open a way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open a way for this person from every stress, from every type of distress. He will open a way for the rizq to be from places they don't expect. So constantly thanking Allah for the blessings and asking for His forgiveness. When Nuh alayhi salam talks about to his people, ask for forgiveness. He will rain down upon you blessings, and he talks about specific blessings. And finally, the last point is look for a blessing even in the hardship. Obviously, we can't tell the wisdom in things all the time, and some things are beyond our ability to even think that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us an ayah that's probably everyone is familiar with, or most of you. What do you think comes to your mind right away? Yes, exactly, say it. Exactly, with hardship comes ease. With it comes ease, not after it and not before it, with it. So even in the hardship, I'll give you one example. I didn't want to go to San Jose State as my undergrad, but I did because of a particular reason. My husband didn't want to come to UCI for his undergrad, but he did. And out of that blessing, alhamdulillah, we met friends, we, alhamdulillah, gained education, all those blessings. But the biggest blessing was, alhamdulillah, we had each other. Alhamdulillah. That's where we met, through MSAs. Alhamdulillah, 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 we were married for almost 10 years. Alhamdulillah. And in that hardship of just making those decisions, even though they were not necessarily in our control, we made for a reason, Allah brought something more long-lasting and better than we could have ever imagined. Sometimes He wills something for you, so that in this moment it may not be the best thing that you think is not the best thing. But He knows what's going to happen for you. He knows your future. And so He knows that this is the best thing for you. And it's accepting that even in that hardship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows something that I don't. And that doesn't mean it's always the case for us. Like the loss of a loved one. We don't understand that. We just ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy on us. And to make it easy on the people who've lost loved ones. And I'm not saying to look for wisdom in that until you're ready for that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what that's like. But maybe it's solely so that, inshallah, regardless of how difficult your life was, inshallah, you'll be rejoined in the highest paradise. How do we inculcate that particular quality? Thinking about the Prophet ﷺ and how much he has gone through in his life. The Prophet ﷺ lost every single one of his children except for one during his lifetime. The Prophet ﷺ lost his best friend in support of Khadija at the same time as losing his father figure, Abu Talib. There was so much hardship in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and yet, constantly, the Prophet ﷺ turned back to Allah because he recognized that his Lord is Al-Hakim and there's wisdom. The Prophet ﷺ was the Prophet ﷺ. So us, every single day, spend some time sending salawat. And it just looks like walking to your car and sending salawat. Whenever you send salawat to the Prophet ﷺ, whenever you send salams upon him, the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you 10 times, raises your degrees 10 times, forgives you 10 times, gives you rewards 10 times, manifold, manifold, and manifold. And inshallah, the Prophet ﷺ will know you by name because your salam is given to him by name. Allahumma salli wa sallam ala nabiyyina wa habibina Muhammad. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be of the people who He loves and who He chooses. Please forgive me. We have a flight to catch, so we're going to run. If you have any questions or anything else, please feel free to contact me on Facebook or on Instagram. Inshallah, I would love to connect with you there. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم.